have people consent to it.
Yes, no. But we'll just do it on. So all it is it okay that we record your auditory, not your image, but your auditory imprint, and share that on the internet and in any edited form and for any use anywhere in the universe at any time? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a wonderful person here who's training to do the Sunrise program here in our Sunrise program in our house, and so we are about to talk about the whole difference between behavioral therapy and our program. And by the way, our program also has a Anat-Baniel method neuromovement in it, so I shouldn't just say Sunrise. The Sunrise / Anat-Baniel neuromovement program is kind of a composite, but it's primarily Sunrise in terms of this core structure. And it's just play therapy mainly. We don't do anything where people are lying there. I do that as a practitioner, but I don't. We're just talking about body awareness and perceptual awareness and integrating and noticing that kind of thing. Anyway, so this person, he had come from a lab. What would you call the lab? You said it was like a behavioral therapy lab. It was in psychology. Psychology department.
It did studies on a.b.a, but it also trained people to work within the a.b.a system to apply those techniques to helping autism kids.
Okay, so they actually work with kids in a clinical setting. Okay, so it was basically people working with autistic kids and studying and propagating changes maybe to how they did it.
At a university.
At a university setting. And a really good university. I won't say which one, unless you want to. Anyway, so I've given this talk probably at least 10 times, but I've never really recorded it. So this is what if you have a Sunrise program, this is how I would introduce an example of how I introduce my program based on what the other person knows. So I first, when he came in, I had forgotten that he did this kind of, had this exposure, was coming from this perspective, like this is how you work with autistic kids. And so I just said, so tell me about your, remind me about what you said when we talked a little, when we first did the interviewing by phone and everything, because it had been a little while since he had come in. And anyway, so he mentioned he was in this lab, and he's been participating in them, studying how to work with these kids. And so here we go. So what I would say is, I was just telling him that the core of behavioral therapy, because we did this for 6 months with my daughter, is that, and I also studied in college, as I told him. I did psychology, at least 1 or 2 classes. Okay, so behavioral therapy is at its core that there's a reward for things that, if there is a reward for something, you'll do more of it. And if there's either no reward or a negative outcome, you'll do less of it. So behavioral therapy's roots came from animals training, which was that Pavlovian dog experiment. If you give a dog a steak and ring a bell, give them a steak, and later you ring a bell, the dog will start drooling like you're going to give them a snake because the steak, because the dog will think that they come together and they mean, so like this is going to mean the next thing's going to happen. And so similarly, if if a child says hello and you're like, oh, I really want more of that, you give them like a jelly bean, like the steak analogy for a human. We would give our children like a raw steak, but we would give them a jelly bean, let's say. Then the child would be like, oh, cool, I'm going to say hello next time too. Like maybe I don't say hello very often because I'm autistic and I almost never say it, but I said hello this time and you gave me a jelly bean. So I might make note, oh, I got something special for that hello. So we use the same thing really in the Sunrise program, only the rewards we use. First of all, our focus is on social skills, which I think a.b.a is also, because they're trying to get you to go to school and be able to participate and take directions and pay attention to people, what they say, and language, stuff like this, just like us. But the difference is we are focused on the social, interactive goals like eye contact, meaning genuine, not forced, spontaneous eye contact. Like when somebody says, "Hey, can you give me this pen? Here, we want to take this pen," and they hand you the pen, you'll actually look at them. You won't be like staring at your foot and have to, oh, I got to look at you. Also, communicative language, which I'm sure they reward too. Flexibility. So when I told you to come in and I said to sit on the couch, you just sat on the couch. You were really cool about it. That's flexible. For example, if you ask an autistic child, can you sit on this couch, or can you draw this picture? They might be like, oh no, I don't draw those pictures. I only draw flowers. I have to draw another flower. I won't draw the thing you asked. So there's an inflexibility we work on, and that interferes with making social times fun for them. And then there's just interactive attention span, which is just sort of the how much continuous time your child actually spends interacting. Whether it's like you're throwing a ball back and forth and then you're talking, and maybe now you stop and walk over here and look at a picture together. The activity changed, but you're still interacting all the way across that timeline. So we track that, and we celebrate all those things by cheering and making the activity more fun, and it's like the kids have a great time, and that's the reward. The contrast is, my experience with ABA is they do not cheer. The people who do cheer are few and far between, and they use items and objects as the reward. So I know this because for 6 months I went with my daughter, I think it was twice a week, and I went with the master's level person who's probably the most senior person in the office, if not the most senior person, because she had a master's degree in psychology and she focused on behavioral therapy. So I got the high, ritzy, expensive one that cost like $100 a session. And I watched what she did. I watched every session. And she eventually was in the process of throwing me out because I would cheer my daughter when she couldn't get the right answer over and over again. And the person was like, you have to just sit there silently like a stone until she gets the answer. I'm just like, what are you talking about? I remember the thing that broke the camel's back was she had said, my daughter kept saying, yes, do you want something? Yes. Because she used to have echolalia. You say, do you want this pen? She'd say, do you want this pen? You say, do you want this pen? She'd say, do you want this pen? You say, do you want this pen? Yes. And she'd say, do you want this pen? Yes. Or whatever. It was like that. So that's how she learned how to say yes and no, as she was starting to append it to sentences that were already echolalic. And in the end, she had those two things came together. So you'd say, do you want this pen? She'd say, I want this pen, yes. It would always have like the yes stuck at the end. And she kept saying that to this person. The person was saying, hey, do you want Anna was like, can I have this toy? And she's like, yeah. She's like saying, so you want this toy? And Anna was supposed to say, yes, she was supposed to say, I want the toy, not yes. And she kept saying, I want the toy, yes. And she said this, I'm not kidding. She said, I want the toy, yes. Give me the toy, yes. Like, can I have the toy? Yes. I'm not kidding. She said 6 things in a row. This person sat there like a stone. And eventually she rolled her eyes like this. She was like, this is lunatic. Like, she was a little autistic kid. She's like, this is lunacy. She was like, what's wrong with this person? And I was like, she looked over at me. She left this person. She was completely turned off by this person. She looked over at me. She had this giant eye roll. She looked at this person. She looked over at me, and I was like, keep going, Anna. Come on, guess it. Try again. And then she was like, don't say anything. I was like, why can't, no, you're not supposed to say anything until she gets the right answer. I'm like, yeah, but she's tried like 6 times. Like, she's walking away from you. Yeah, but don't do that. So they eventually tried to get me to not say anything, which was like the end. That was one of the camel's back moments. So what we do is we celebrate when the child tries. We celebrate every time the child. So if she was like, let's replay this in a sunrise world. Child wants this phone. Let's say the phone. We're not going to use technology. I take that back. Child wants to put on the sunglasses. Sunglasses are on a shelf. In the sunrise program, put things on a shelf. Okay, so the child's like looking up there, and let's say the child can talk. We can do different levels of it. So child can talk. Child says, I want the sunglasses. They're pointing to him. Well, if you want the sunglasses, say, I want the sunglasses. And the child might say, I want the sunglasses, yes. And I'd be like, yay! And I'd give the sunglasses. First of all, that's what would happen. Unless the child already knew how to do that, and I was working on, let's say, not saying yes. So she might say, I want the sunglasses, and I might pick them up, and she might say yes, and I might pause and say, can you just say, I want the sunglasses, like without that last part. I want the sunglasses. And she might say, I want the sunglasses. Yes. And oh, it was so close. You almost had it. And you try it again. You say, can you say it slower. This is not Bonnielle coming in, saying things slower so they learn something new. Do you want I want the sunglasses. I might do that. And I might go slower if you. And the child might stop and be like, yes, you did it. Here you go. Yay. So the child it enjoys that they're trying and you're always there. You're not just, here's the ABA version. Do you want the sunglasses? And she might say, I want the sunglasses. Yes. And this is exactly what this woman did. She put it back and she said yes. And she's like saying, do you want the sunglasses? She's like, I want the sunglasses. Yes. And then she's like, do you want the sunglasses? She's like, I want the sunglasses. Yes. And she kept saying she wouldn't prompt her. She made her keep trying without knowing how to fix it. And so what I'm saying is, so first of all, we cheer on the way. We cheer partial attempts. If you said, say, the child was like, I couldn't say, you say glasses. Glasses. Like, look at my mouth. Say, g. And the child goes, you say, oh my gosh, I think I heard it. Here you go. It was glass. Because you heard the beginning of the ga. And if the child tried 5 times to say it and couldn't say it, you'd be like, okay, let's say 3 times, 4 times, whatever you think is a good amount of effort. You be like, thank you for guessing. We'll do it next time. Let's go play with the glasses. And the thing just does not die. In ABA, my experience is it dies. Like the interaction between the person and the child just is like withered on the vine by the end of the session. The core of the relationship is that is the driving force. So the other thing in ABA is because you're not cheering, at least this person at the master's level was like, this is like not cool, cut it out to me. She's like, okay, you have to be, I don't know, somebody it has to be pure, it has to be objective. I'm like, no, the child just has to learn how to talk. The child has to learn how to talk. Okay, so whatever we do that works, and if cheering keeps the child trying, the more attempts, it's like a basketball. The more times you get that child to shoot that basket, it doesn't matter. Let's say the child couldn't say glasses quite right. But let's say you're working on the gus sound. You find other things, like you put the kid's water in the glass, and that's a gus sound. So then they say they want the glass. Then you try it again with the glass. Say, guh, guh. And you do this all day. You find everything. You put something else with a G. You pick all the toys that could start with a G, and you put them on the shelf. And that's all you had to play with that day. So you keep trying the guh 20 times. This is how we do it in Sunrise. We'd set it up so the thing that you want would be very enriched and likely to happen, and we celebrate the attempts. So you get that idea. Okay, the other thing, as I mentioned, and is not to be missed, is we don't use jelly beans, we don't use food, we don't use electronics as bribery. When I went to behavioral therapy, they would have a child have a toy, and like they would be playing on this like this, which we don't do in the Sunrise program because that's not how people interact with each other. They don't have their face like this. That's what you do when you're alone. And autistic kids are famously alone. And so what we would do is, I observed this because I was there with my daughter for 6 months. They would have a kid on electronics doing something, pressing buttons, and then they would say, then they would take it away. So here, you be the therapist, okay? You come grab it out of my hands. This is what they do. Child's playing. Come grab it out of my hands. Here you go. And then the child would look up and they'd say, give it back. And they might say, give it back. And say, let's say you do that. So you say, give it back. Tell me, say, give it back.
Give it back.
Or I'll say, give it back. And then they'll hand it back. They'll just hand it to me coolly, and the child goes back to this. And then they do it again. Do you want to do it again? Child said, all right, so in the meantime, the child's just like, okay, who is this guy? I don't want this. Why is this guy taking my stuff? So first of all, there is this control element that in ABA, they condition the kids that everything you have can be ripped out of your hands, and can and will be ripped out of your hands by this individual who's trying to teach you how to talk. So I remember this is one of the other straws that broke the back. There were like 2 camel's back straw breaking events that got me out of ABA. So one of them was my daughter had just gotten a yellow balloon. She was super excited about it. And I said, oh, it's almost time to go to, I think she got it at a bank or something. We were going through the line or something. And we just went to the grocery store. So she's like, I want to play with the balloon. I was like, hey, why don't we take this to therapy with us? Because just like in the Sunrise program, wham, we just bring that in the playroom. We do something with the balloon. We put animals on it. We play. We let it go. We see if we could lift things. And we do imagine anything you can imagine that would be fun. And we do language around it. And we would create the challenges around the balloon. The thing is, the minute we walked in, the therapist walked in and ripped it. I just literally just took the balloon. My daughter's like this, like, nah, nah, nah. She came in, and she just took the balloon out of her hands. And then she was, like, walking back to the room, and Anna was just looking at me. I'm just like, okay. And the thing is that, okay, so Sunrise is all about, if you're going to want the child to get something and do something, that you're not going to rip it out of their hands. You have it, let's say, it's on a shelf. Or that there's something that they want that they don't know how to say. Like they want you to make a smoothie and they can't say it. So they're struggling to say smoothie. So you try to help them in a natural flow of things. You don't become like I'm in control and you're going to just be begging and working for me to get your things back from me. So there's definitely a permissiveness in the playroom. Kids can play whatever they want in the playroom. If you don't want their kid to play with knives, don't put a knife in the playroom. And same thing with electronics. Kids with autism are famously drawn to electronics for a variety of reasons that we can cover in another post. But they definitely don't compete well with the Sunrise program. I mean, the Sunrise program just doesn't work well when people are like knee-deep in electronics because it's hard for somebody to join flashing lights and people look like they're jumping cliffs. Have you ever seen like Tomb Raider? I forget the name, the one that the guy's like running. And I mean, whatever it is you're doing, you can't really join that well. You could probably, if you're very charismatic and good at it, you could probably start competing, but there's no need for that during a class. Like they don't let kids do this when they're going in math class at school. There's a reason, because it's much more easy. With a few moves of your finger, you can make people jump and run, and and planes fly, and in reality, you have to know what you're doing to do that, which is why we go to school. So you have to go slow, you have to build your way to maybe doing that in real life, and this will not get you there. This just gives you dreams, which is great. Dreams are great, but you got to get there. Okay, so in summary, I mean, I think I can probably think of one more thing, but in its core, sunrise, oh, I knew there's one big one. Here it goes, psh, like fireworks. Everything in ABA is either good or bad. The therapist will say, like, their behavioral therapy, they'll say, that's a good behavior and that's bad behavior. Okay, so let's say the child comes in, my daughter does hand flapping. They would be like, oh, don't do that. Quiet hands, quiet hands. They'll take their things away, just like we just did. Child's doing this thing. A hand will come out of the picture and rip the thing out of their hand. And they're trying to teach them not to do the thing that they've decided is bad. And then the kids come up with something else that the therapist doesn't think is bad to replace it to ism with. In our program, we call it isming. And it turns out that if ripping things out of someone's hand, telling them to say no, and in the old days they would hit them and tie their hands down. In the old ABA, that's the history of ABAs. They were involved in a lot of what people consider now just horrible abuse of people. They would lock them in closets and throw the key away for hours because they did something they didn't like, and they would hit them when they tried to hand flap and things. Okay, so that's the history of ABA. It's a dark history. Now, because of like courts and everything, they can only ignore the behavior. But they're definitely not cheerleaders like us. But getting back to the good and bad, in the Sunrise program and the philosophy that underlies it, called the option process, there is no good and bad. Those are judgments. And the judgments, we decide what to judge. So, for example, we can decide that a child hand flapping is not a bad thing. We can decide, in fact, it's something that they're doing because it's good for them at some level. And we actually believe the child, we trust the child wouldn't be doing something that's really profoundly stupid and injurious. We think they're doing because it helps them recenter. And it turns out, it helps them calm down. There are purposes to it. So we join it. So that's the other big thing is they wage war on the isms, which are the spinning and the hand flapping or rocking, whatever the kids are doing, and we join and we don't judge it. So that's probably the biggest difference. So let me just review one more time. What you saw as rewards that were probably material rewards of the sort of jelly beans or electronics, whatever they gave the kids, you're going to be rewarding by cheering. If we do a non-social goal, like doing math, I give my daughter a non-social reward. So I do actually use ABA in a limited way, but not on the core social deficit. So you're going to be celebrating. Is there something in your life that you ever celebrate a lot? Like, do you watch sports, or do you cheer when you come home? Do you have a dog that you like, and the dog's all happy, and you're super happy about the dog?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do that you ever find yourself celebrating?
At the end of the school semester?
Okay, what do you do at the end of school semester?
I just take a few days off, and I feel free for those days, and I hang out with friends, and we go out and have fun.
Do you ever express... Well, we're going to get more into the celebrate, but that's an example. That the feeling you have, the celebrating, we bring that to when the child interacts. So if we want the child to look at us more, we cheer, or we find a way of gratitude, cheering, some expression of that was really valuable to us. That's one of the big differences. So you're going to be growing this whole part of you that's the celebration piece. So they'll be really easy and really natural for you to celebrate interaction from her, which right now, I don't know, but you probably have not once thought to cheer that I'm looking at you right now. You've been like, hey Barb, great job. Good talking to me, right?
I haven't thought about it.
Right? You haven't thought about saying, hey, I'm so glad you're looking at me. Instead of like this, right? I could have been talking to you like this or looking at my notes, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't think to celebrate that, but you're going to. That's what you're going to be doing there today. By the way, this is his first day, so we're going to throw him in there. This is a good way I want to build on what he knows, though, so we're going to do that. So number one is you're going to celebrate when she looks at you and interacts or talks to you, but you don't interrupt her, or you can still have a whole conversation back and forth. Hey, Anna might say, we saw the air show, and you could say, oh, wow, what did you see? And she might say, we saw planes doing circles and going straight up, and you could be like, hey, that was really, you could be like, yeah, I heard it, but I didn't see it. And then you might say, okay, conversation feels like there's a moment. You say, and that was great, thanks for sharing that with me. Or I really like that you told me that. Or I like it too, that was good talking. Something, you'll think of it. We'll work on that. Okay, number two, let's actually jump to the thing about the celebrating and the not judging. So you're not going to judge anything. We call this the attitude. You're going to accept that whatever she's doing there makes sense for her, where she is mentally, and in terms of her autism being as some kind of a disruption of how her brain organized or works right now that'll be hopefully work its way out. And so we're not going to judge the fact that she hand flaps. So I'm going to be her, right? Can you hand flap with me? You're going to join. Can you do this? It's almost like pretend your hands are like they're like there's no tension in your hands. So she'll even do it fast. Like I don't know how fast you can. It's starting to hurt me, so I'm not going to do it. No, not that fast. Not like that. She'll do like that, right? And she might rock a little. So see if you can do that. Like see if you can rock, right? So you're not going to like be like stop that. You're like oh. And then she also does a lot of looking. Like so you can stop for a second. She doesn't do these at the same time. She doesn't hand flap and look. So she side looks. So she might look up like this, like she's looking at the ceiling, and she might turn this way. And then, there you go. I can see her the corner of my eye. Perfect. So you join her. If she makes a sound like this, she goes like, look. Do you hear this? Do you hear the scratching? Even if you can't see it, I'm scratching like. Do you hear this? So you scratch your legs. So you go ahead and make the similar sound. That's called join. Do you hear that? You're doing it visually. You're doing the same thing. You're making a sound.
Mm-hmm.
She might go, like she used to make bird sounds. She used to go. There's these grackles in Dallas, and they make a sound like that right before they make the whist. They go. I can't even do it. She used to imitate them. So she goes, can you do that? Yeah, there you go. So we're going to be the opposite. So in a.b.a. they'd be like, stop doing that, or don't hand flap, or put that down. And we're going to be like joining. We're not judging. We don't celebrate the isms. We call them isms. We just do them with the child, and then when they come back out, we go right back to as if it's a pause button, and someone just hit the pause. And if you were in the middle of playing a game with her, she might say, "Okay, your turn." You'd be like, "Okay, thanks for telling me," and go right like it's like it didn't happen. You don't go. You can talk about it if you feel like it, but you don't have to. And the other, so we talked about the celebrating in a social goals in a social way, and we talked about not judging. I'm trying to remember the middle point though. Do you remember the middle point? Cheering. There was this thing about that they didn't cheer when she did things that were, they tried to like be neutral and cold. Remember you were saying that they ignore behavior they don't want. We ignore behavior we don't want, but if we want something, we definitely cheer more of it.
Mm-hmm. You're asking.
But we did that already. I feel like there was one more point in the middle there. Well, just the attitude. I mean, I actually think we covered it. It's probably just we covered it twice. So because this is your first time, first of all, everything that sticks is great. It doesn't matter if you only remember one thing. So this is really important to tell your new people. Okay, the Sunrise program, it works in a cumulative way. It doesn't matter if you do a little bit of something. So let's say it doesn't, you don't have to do it perfectly. Unlike, I'll give you a contrast. When we were doing the gluten-free diet, they would be like, you have to have like no gluten. You have to read the label, even on the like almond milk or whatever, the soy milk. They're like, you can't have like the tiniest bit of gluten. If you have a kid, they'd be like, you could be on I'm just saying, these people told me this. If you're on a gluten-free diet for like 3 weeks and the kid has a cracker a cracker with gluten in it, they'll like go nuts and you'll be off of the thing for 6 weeks. Or I mean, it was like so fragile. I don't know if we tried to do those diets and it was just like you had to do it all at once. It had to be perfect. You weren't supposed to use the same toaster. You couldn't use the same towel to wipe your hands in the kitchen. They didn't even want it in the house. They couldn't have it in the shampoo. It was like if you got one thing wrong, it just fell like a house of cards. This is why I'm in the Sunrise program, because I don't like such a fragile treatment. You can join her when she isms. It will help her get better. It will shorten those periods that she needs to be out. You can celebrate the interactions. It will help her get better. It'll invite her to do it more. You can be in a happy, loving, comfortable, playful attitude, and that will help her invite. Every time she looks over, she seems like that's a person I might want to interact with. That'll invite her to get better. So she'll practice it. She'll take more shots. She'll stay around more. Even if you didn't do the other two things. If you forgot to celebrate the entire time, the fact that you're in a great attitude, you're going to look like a happy, present person. And it's going to have the effect of reinforcing her interaction with you. So like everything you do, that's a piece of Sunrise, in even a small part is going to help her. And if you do them all together, it's even more powerful. It's much more powerful, actually. But it starts from, it doesn't put her off, and it goes to the point of being productive and constructive. So it doesn't matter if anything, you only remember one thing. You might just remember the attitude. Let's review, actually, I'll just say them in words, what I normally teach, but I think we're about ready to have you go in there. But number one is the attitude. Our program is based on that attitude we just talked about, not judging the isms. So have that non-judgmental, accepting attitude throughout. Number two, when the child goes in their own world, what do we say you do?
When the child goes into their own world.
When they do their thing that we call their autistic behavior, like the hand flapping and the...
Oh, you copy it?
Yes, you copy it, which we use the word joining, but it's the same thing. So basically, like, you copy it. When they do something interactive, do you remember the word I use? Or you can use a different word, but what do you do?
You cheer it?
Yeah, in some
Sort of
way. You can compliment, cheer, say thank you, gratitude, explain why it's so valuable that she said it. Now I understand what you meant. Oh, I'm so glad you used
And
that
it
word.
sounds like you sort of repeat what they did too, or like acknowledge verbally so that they know that they did
You
that.
do. You label it. I wouldn't say you repeat,
yeah.
but like you say, I really like that you said that, because if there are people who go in there that celebrate a lot of what she does, she might say, I saw the air show today, which we did, and she might say, we're gonna do a post on that. I saw the air show today, and you might say like, yeah, great. And I can tell you, I think anybody, but I can tell you as an autistic person, I'd be like, great, what? Like, what did I do? Because I like that you said great, and I want more of that. But like, what? Like, something about the air show. I mean, if I talk about the air show, you're going to be happy. Well, I saw airplanes that went in circles, uh, and I might just be like, does you say great? It's confusing. I mean, it's just like you'd say, hey, I like that you said that, and then you can tell, you share and add things. We actually are going to have you, add variety. I didn't talk about that as much. It's not that important. But the most important things are things I told you. But let's say she's doing really great with you, because some people go in there, they do the right attitude, and the child is like totally comfortable talking and everything and interacting. Then you do what's called adding variety. That's sort of the next step, which is just you try to make it, if she's talking about the air show, you can share your stories about if you ever went to an air show or what you heard today with the sounds, even if you didn't. And then you could share something about, you can create activities if you want to play games with her. She's got like Chinese checkers. You can show her pictures of things. You can draw things. You can do things together. So I'm saying the activities and stuff are fine in talking, but the fundamental piece of it is, we've already talked about it and we have enough, so you can take anything from the grab bag and go ahead in there. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, but this is like an intro, an example of a first session with somebody building on what they know. In this case, it's behavioral therapy, and wrapping it all up and setting them in the playroom. She's about to go in the playroom. And I guess that's it. See you. Good luck.